Welcome to Artificial Antics, where Rico and Mike will talk about the implications and opportunities around artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. On today's episode, artificial yet intelligent, the AI phenomenon. The guys will talk about what AI is, the various ways it's already in your daily life, and where the technology is going.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Artificial Antics. I'm here with my co-host, Mike. And today we're going to be covering a range of topics, do a little bit of a dive into what artificial intelligence is, the type of artificial intelligence that's available currently, and take a look at that and see the implications of it, ways that it's been used already. So, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. Rico, thanks for the introduction. And folks, the reason why it's important for Rico and I to do a quick AI bite here on artificial intelligence, I'm sure everybody watching this video has an idea of what artificial intelligence is, and you're very most likely right. And one of the reasons I can almost guarantee that you're right is that artificial intelligence is very, very broad, right? So artificial intelligence covers everything from Siri to self-driving cars, right? It's all in that spectrum, right? Now you have different subsections of artificial intelligence that we will absolutely be doing separate AI bites on. One of those would be machine learning. Another one of those would be deep learning, right? And then you have also some different subsets that cross over where you've got like large language models. This is what like ChatGPT is built on. And a lot of the generative AI tools are built on large language models. You have natural language processing where you're speaking via text or audio or whatnot, right? And your words are being interpreted and used to generate and sort of fill in the blanks type thing, right? So that's a basic level of what AI is. And we're going to go into a few different ways that AI applies overall. So Rico, as far as AI goes, we know I'm the more technical person here, but you're a smart guy. Was there anything that I missed there? Anything that you can add about AI or specific things that you used? I know you were talking about voice assistants, right? As a base level, those have existed for quite some.
Right. And one of the funny things that we hear currently is a lot of people are hearing AI over the past few months and they're apprehensive about it, right? They're thinking, I don't want to be involved in this. It's very scary. They hear all these big headlines. But the reality of the story is that people have been using Siri and Alexa for a few years now. Those are relatively easy to use services. They're on all of our phones. Most people don't disable them or they use them in some form or another. I mean, heck, I'm not a big AI person. I am now, right? But a few months back prior to this project, I was using Siri to set a timer. Your hands are dirty, you're making food in the kitchen or something like that. And you yell, hey, Siri, set a timer for, and she's probably going to, there she goes. She sets a timer for you. Alexa, I know that many of my family members use Alexa. They're comfortable with Alexa. It does make their life easier.
Yep.
And that's ultimately where we're trying to get through this podcast is, me as a layperson, you as a technologist, coming together and telling people like, look, I know it can be scary. Everything is scary at first when you don't understand something or you haven't delved into it, but this isn't going away. So, come along with us. Let's take a look at some of the applications of AI, the different tools that are available, and learn about what it is and what it can do for you. So that's my takeaway, Mike, is that there's plenty of versions of it that are very base level, what we consider base level, Siri, Alexa, and then getting more complex with Tesla using AI to actually drive the car and things like that. So
right, yeah, no, absolutely, Rico. Thanks for sharing that. I do like to get both of our takes on this. Right, this is very collaborative between Rico and I, and then of course, really AI as the driver, right, as our third member of the show. One of the things that I did want to mention, right, is I'll just quickly go through a few more examples of AI that folks either may or may not be familiar with, right? So you've got ChatGPT. I think that's one that a lot of people these days, right, will be familiar with. You've got speech to text. I'm going through, I've got a voice recording right now. I want to turn that into a transcription. Well, that's AI doing that, right? Like it's understanding the words and whatnot. And then the inverse of that, which is called text to speech or TTS, right, is where I'm actually typing in words and then it's creating the voiceover for that. And Rico, we've used tools like Descript, and then there's 11 Labs is another one. There are a lot of tools that do text to speech very, very intelligently. And I would say that the voices and the tones and connotations with the voices have gotten a lot better, right? You can almost not tell whether or not you can, I think still, and it depends on the word and where the line, the breaks are in it. but it's gotten very advanced, right? Sentiment analysis is another one. So for folks who aren't familiar with sentiment analysis is where you're either taking a set of text or you're taking an audio clip, and you're using AI to determine the sentiment at the different pieces of the conversation. So if somebody yells, hey, this is the greatest day in the world, well, maybe you're going to get a positive note there. But if somebody says, oh, this really sucks, you're very likely going to get a negative tag there for sentiment analysis. Yeah, so sentiment analysis, for folks who aren't familiar with what that is, that's where you're taking a set of text like a transcript, or you're taking audio files and you're actually feeding this into AI, and AI will determine, and it does it well sometimes and sometimes it doesn't do it well, right? But it will determine the tone, right? Like, is the person angry? Is there aggression there, right? Or sadness or happiness or glee, right? All of that can be detected by these various AIs. And as I said, some of them are better than others. And then also, just the, some of the text ones will say, like the word, hey, I had a great day. That's going to generally come up with a positive, sentiment analysis score. Whereas, oh man, this day really sucks, right? Like that,
Right.
that would obviously be translated in sentiment analysis tools to a negative. And then there's neutral. And a lot of this stuff does end up being neutral, right? I work in the communications industry, so I see how sentiment analysis works every day in big sets of information, and quite a bit of it is neutral, right? And then there are false positives and false negatives as well, right? So that's sentiment analysis, and that's one of the ways that sentiment analysis and text to speech and speech to text, these are used very frequently in business,
Sure.
right? Like, text to speech, I'll give you a funny example. You might not think about it, but when you're setting up your voicemail greeting on your phone, do you want to actually record that mother like 5 or 6 times, 20 times? I don't, right?
Right.
So
Most people don't.
most people don't. And the platform that I work with and on at work, right? You could just type in your voicemail greeting and it will translate it. You can set the voice, and
Right.
there are female voices, male voices, dominant voices, and soft, meek voices as well, right? People love that. That's used
Sure.
so much. I think that the me recording my voicemail greeting is one of those things where it's still going to be there, but who wants to do that, really? Even my out of office message that I was on vacation recently, I said, "Oh, I'm typing text to speech for this baby." Another case of AI in businesses are like business intelligence tools, right?
Yes.
Let's say you have large sets of data, right? Whether it be financial or key insights on customer experience and whatnot, and you need to understand, let's say, really high level aggregate
Sure.
key insights about your customer base or your competitors or whatnot. There are tools out there that will go through a larger set of data. And we've seen one of these, Rico, I think it was called Hootsuite or something like that,
Yep.
right? Where it would
Few
go
weeks
out
back,
and
sure.
it would take all of the social media on a company and the competitors, and it would analyze that and say, hey, this is what your competitor's doing, or hey, this is something that's out there in your industry, right? It could be industry specific. So that would be
Sure.
another case of where, it's scraping data and then it's using AI tooling to say, hey, this is this or that, right? And again, we're gonna reiterate, as we always do, that this is not perfect, right? AI
Correct.
does make mistakes, right? Another case of AI would be generative AI tools like ChatGPT, but also like Midjourney. Midjourney is a tool where
Mhm.
it's text to image, right? And they also have tools where it's text to video. So you could explain a script of a short clip for a commercial, and there's AI, right? AI tools right now today that could turn that text set into a video, and some of it will get it pretty darn close. If not, I mean, there are actual videos that are being made, right? There's a case right now where somebody from start to finish created a movie and published the movie on Amazon Prime
Wow.
Video for $2.99. They made $80,000 in less than a month, and it was completely AI generated. I think they said the cost of the video was under $1,000 to make with AI. And that's with
Right.
you're paying out money to the different AI tools to generate that video. It's not, free,
Free.
right? Some
Right.
cases it is, right? Like I'll give you a couple of free tools right now that you can use to, let's say, generate an image. Bing has an AI image generation tool, and you just go to Bing and you type in, image creator, and we'll put a link to this in the AI Byte notes as well. So that's a free one, right? ChatGPT, there's a free version that you can use. If you want some of the advanced features like GPT-4, then you pay some money for it. But, Rico, you've been using ChatGPT for quite some time, right? And
Yep,
you
that's
haven't
correct.
paid a cent, right?
Right. Not yet. No, I haven't done the updated version yet. Yeah, with some of the
Yeah.
other expenses we have for sure.
Yeah. No. So
I'll tell you one thing on what you're saying is some of the AI tools that I've seen recently, and these really go on social media a whole lot. There's a lot of hubbub about it. There's a lot of folks who don't know about AI, and that's okay if you don't know about AI. It's understandable. It's rapidly evolving. We're seeing changes literally day to day that are blowing our socks off. And we're trying to be in the know here. So those who aren't really paying attention to it are falling victim to seeing these political leaders around the world with these deep fakes. And they're faking their faces, they're faking their voices, and short of really listening to the cadence, right, or some of the pronunciation or that the characters and the people are using in those videos, it's hard to discern that those are fakes. I've seen, TikToks and some of the other things on social media with thousands of likes, hundreds and hundreds of comments, and folks just eat it up. They are not in a position currently to be able to discern and say, hey, this is a deep fake. And it's problematic. I see some of the legacy media covering that type of stuff and doing it because they're kind of disappointed that the things are out there going as viral as they are. And then we're sitting back here going, I can kind of tell that's not that political leader. Regardless of which ones you want to follow, you don't want to have any of them put out there as a deep fake that are going to stir a bunch of people up in the current climate in the world. So that's one of the other things I've seen with it. And again, like you said, I've seen videos that are generated of it, of the creating characters, creating storylines, and utilizing some of that with the artwork. It's quite good, but as you said, with Midjourney and some of those other services, you tend to pay a little bit more, to get in there if you get a subscription
Right.
to them. But it's more bang for your buck for sure.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. And I use a combination of the tools. I do have a Midjourney account, and I would say that Midjourney is good in almost every case at this point. You do have to pay for
Right.
that. There's no free tier anymore. There used to be. I started out though, like let's call it my beginning AI journey, right? Where I've been in tech for a while, so I've understood AI and I've used AI for a while, but I didn't really get super interested probably until about last November or early this year, right? Where ChatGPT came out. I was really seeing
Right.
some strides in the industry, and I've always been a visual person, and I thought the image generation was just super freaking cool, right?
Yep.
I want to take like Patrick Bateman from American Psycho and mash him up with I forgot it was Tyler Durden from Fight Club, right? I've done so many
Right.
mashups.
Yeah.
Like I did one with American Psycho with Patrick Bateman from American Psycho and the Saw guy. I don't even like Saw, but I wanted to see what it would come up with, right? It's
Sure.
pretty interesting stuff, right? Rico, you and I have been up and down the paces with the
Oh, yeah.
generative art
Spent
stuff.
lots of hours with
So
our
much
kids.
Yeah.
I tell you, one night with my youngest, he's 17, had absolute blast creating various versions of the Mandalorian in zebra print. And I am telling you, Mike, it was so much fun because even Iron Man, we did a bunch of stuff with Iron Man's image. It's just amazing what comes out the other end. And again, you can't just start with a string, right? You can't just put like Iron Man in the thing. Of course, you're going to get some images, but when you started getting descriptive and building that string out and trying different things, we had a blast making stormtroopers again in Zebra, adding them as characters where, it was a panda version of the Mandalorian. So the color scheme was a panda. It was a panda size with the Mandalorian helmet. We did it with stormtroopers, all this other nerdy stuff. Absolute blast. I can tell you that if anybody listening has not tried Bing's AI generator, it is free. You make an account. It utilizes some tokens. We've talked about it before in previous episodes. absolutely go and do that. It is very, very fun, especially if you have a favorite character or series that you want to see slightly different, you have an idea for. Jump in there, tell it what you want to see, play with a little bit. It's free. So
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, we will definitely be putting a link to that because some of these things, they're there. It can be a little hard to find them, right? So we'll make sure that folks have that link. Yeah. So, and folks, there are a couple different classifications of AI as well. I think we mentioned it a little bit earlier in this segment here, but there's what's called weak AI versus strong AI. Weak AI would be something like Siri. Strong AI would be self-driving vehicles. And I'm going to give you kind of a key differentiator there between the two. A weak AI will be very imperative, right? Where you're defining, okay, if A happens, do this. And if B happens, do this, right? That's Siri, right? There are a lot of pre-programmed responses. It doesn't really go through and process information and look for an outcome. It very much, it's an outcome, but it's very much like driven outcome, right? On the back end. With a strong AI, especially AI where you've got what are called agents involved, right? Where it's recurring. It's taking, one thing that you've done and it's going out and doing another thing, right? There's something called auto GPT and agents. I've mentioned it a little bit. It isn't perfect, folks, but let's say you give it 5 goals, right? And it goes out and takes care of those goals for you.
Right.
It's trying to find the best way to accomplish those 5 goals without you telling it exactly how to accomplish the 5 goals, right? So it's more of a declarative style, as in, I do declare that I want to get from point A to point B without any accidents. So that's strong or weak versus strong AI. Going into AI in some different industries, one of the industries that has seen a lot of shakeup is healthcare, right? So there are tools out there that are used now to triage things. And again, folks, these are not perfect, but some of the examples that I've seen are like, they're able to, take a small little picture, an image of a, let's say a freckle or something on somebody's body and go through training data and try and figure out what that is, right? And they're doing that using something that's called discriminative AI. And that's opposed to generative AI, where discriminative AI is you're taking all the things, you're comparing it against something and you're cutting out all the things that don't fit. Generative AI is you're using a lot of samples, and especially in the case of large language model, but you're predicting, right? You're building a contiguous string and you're predicting the next, what are called tokens, right? In that conversation. And Rico, I know you had looked at some different industries and different stories where, these tools were being used. Did you have anything that you wanted to talk about on that subject?
Sure. One of the things that we had discussed earlier was there's a podcast, and we're going to do a later episode to get a little bit more in depth on some of the healthcare AI that's out there currently. One of the things that I want to touch on that you had just touched on was, so people are apprehensive about it, but what you need to understand is the power of it. The more inputs that we have, the more data. And again, this will come from wearable devices like Fitbits, Apple Watches, those type of things, the health app on iPhones. I'm an iPhone user, so I tend to know a little bit more about that than what's on Android. But with that type of information, if the AI knew more about you, if it knew about your sleeping habits, if it knew about what your heart rate was on a regular basis, both resting and when you're exercising, with all of those data inputs, there are companies now that are trying to come out with some solutions for that again would take it, would do some comparison to other data and maybe be able to catch something or diagnose something a little bit sooner. So more on that later. We're going to dive into that. In the interim, I saw a story recently about a dog, right? And the owner had taken the dog to the veterinarian. They had taken a look at the animal. There was clearly something wrong with it. The doctor wasn't able to diagnose exactly what that issue was with the animal, but they decided, and nobody likes this. It happens with both regular doctors and with veterinarians, is just go home. We're going to take a look at some stuff. We'll get in touch with it, monitor yourself or the animal or whoever happens to be ill, and then see where, come back to us later on. Well, this particular dog owner decided that, that's not good enough for me. They basically wanted a second opinion. So this particular owner went home, said, you know what? I know how to use Chat GPT. I'm going to give it some inputs. I'm going to try to diagnose my animal on my own. And he was able to do that. And he was able to do that quite well. And again, we say a lot of things about Chat GPT, about trust, but verify. And, I have another story that will tell you why you need to verify, because the consequences can be dire. But in this instance, the gentleman was able to figure out what was wrong with his animal, diagnose the issue, go back to a veterinarian, and have that solved a lot quicker than just monitoring. And, when you care about your animal, your kids, yourself, you don't want to just monitor, right? Every day counts. You don't want to see anybody suffer. This is a way that a very easy to use AI, can help you in your everyday life. Now, like I said on the other story, where it's a little bit more dire, and again, trust but verify. There was a story recently. I'm an attorney that had actually utilized AI, and he was using Chat GPT to make some decisions for him. And we've talked about before with AI hallucinations, right? What was the word? Dulture, right? We had talked about in one of our episodes and one of our clips, where we asked Chat GPT to create an Irish drinking song for the podcast, rhymed the word culture with dulture. I went, looked it up. Dulture doesn't exist. It was an AI hallucination. So knowing it could mess up something as simple as that, you really don't want to put your livelihood in the hands of Chat GPT, not proofread, not verify. It can be dire. So this particular attorney faced a judge in Manhattan on criminal charges because he was using Chat GPT to make decisions for him. And unfortunately, he didn't verify, right? He trusted, he didn't verify. And Chat GPT had actually created some fake items. And in law, as you know, there may be gray area in law, but I don't think there's room for Chat GPT to have a bit of a hallucination guide your case.
Yeah.
Whether it's civil, criminals.
You're right. I remember hearing about this now that you're reminding me. And here's what it did. This is what blew my mind. So this guy not only asked ChatGPT for information, and it gave him they'd hallucinated some fake cases where certain events had happened, right? But then this genius, right, said, are those real cases, directly to ChatGPT? And then didn't verify it, didn't go out and do the fact checking. It's extremely important, folks, for you to do fact checking on this stuff, especially stuff where it really counts, right? Like anything medical. I'm going to go back to, Rico, you're talking about the guy with the dog. I remember something specific about that story too. And that's that the guy did go through ChatGPT to try and identify it, and then went and got a second opinion.
Right.
And that was the whole thing. He didn't take the action himself or whatnot. He went ahead and got a second opinion. And he just so happened to then have enough information that with his information and what ChatGPT had provided him, that he was able to steer them in the right direction. And it was identified like right away. And the dog really needed help. I mean, it could have died, right? Like, so this was, I think the article was called like ChatGPT saved my dog or something.
Something like that, correct?
Yeah. And so this is a pretty interesting time that we're living in. I'll transition us a little bit, right? We're talking about the legal thing. There are some, obviously some fears around AI, right? We need to be using this with a sober mindset and not think that it's just going to replace everything and do everything perfect, right? So one example that I have, and I've mentioned it before, is, ChatGPT and responding to emails. Well, if you're writing an email and you're letting ChatGPT totally take the reins and not curating what's in that email, well, your worst fear of, not having a job may come true, because it's very noticeable, right? It's very noticeable when you're doing that kind of stuff. And that is one of the big fears, right? Is ChatGPT, or not ChatGPT, AI taking our jobs, right? And I get it, right? Executives all around the country are real excited about the 100X and everything else. Trust me, I know a lot of CEOs. They're real excited, right? So it's taking from a technical mindset, taking what is there, taking the expectations, and determining how we can get the most gain while still being realistic. And what I found overwhelmingly is that these are extensions of us. And I don't believe in the short term that AI is going to take your job unless you're in copy.
Right.
Good luck. But I don't think that in the short term, AI is going to take your job. I think somebody using AI is pretty much absolutely going to take a certain set of jobs, right?
Sure.
And I know in the past, we thought that AI was going to automate all the dirty jobs that we didn't want to do. And the white collar jobs and creative jobs were, white collar would be second and creative would be last, right? Oh, when it starts creating art, like that'll be the end thing. That's and we found that it's almost like the opposite. Like white collar and art are being generated quite easily, right? It's not perfect, but it's moving in a very progressive direction, and things are constantly being improved, right? I have 5 fingers, and ChatGPT, or I'm sorry, the generative AI tools, sometimes it can be 10 fingers or 2 fingers or whatever,
bent
right?
the wrong way, 2 thumbs.
Listen, folks, it took us a long time to get the fingers right on our icon, those finger guns.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure we went through at least 200 iterations, and that's
Easy.
4 images easy, right? We used all my tokens, all Rico's free tokens, and so
had to wait a whole 24 hours to get more tokens.
Right. Yeah. So, it can take some time, right, to get this stuff together. Some other fears about AI, right, and there are a few different ones, but another classification of fear around AI, right, is alignment, right? So take the scenario where, AI, you give AI an objective. You say, clean up all of the world's oceans to this point, a certain point, right? You define that point, and you have to do it within a year. And AI says, take some data, take some time to process it, and it comes out the other end with, oh yeah, here's let's do this. Let's go ahead and get started on this. But what it doesn't really realize is the implication that the 25% of the world's oxygen is going to be used during this cleaning process, right? And so then we're slowly dying, right? Because AI made a decision, took the reins, and it's not aligned. It's not aligned with the human goal, right? The humanity goal of humanity and preserving it, right? So that's one thing. Another one is called enfeeblement, and enfeeblement is where kind of like I said with the email, you just let these tools take the reins and it does everything for you, and then all of a sudden we know from muscle memory and brain memory, right, that repetition is what creates and keeps the saw sharpened, and you lose the ability to do that. You depend too much on AI, right? And that's not a good thing either, right? Which is why one of the main things that I'm constantly doing when I'm taking the outputs of any AI is I'm going through and assessing and trying to understand as best I can and fact check and figure out how it's getting to those answers, right? Now, ChatGPT directly, like OpenAI's version, will not give you its sources. I will say that both Bing AI and Bard AI go to the open internet. So there's a good and the bad there, right? One of the things that I like about ChatGPT is I can turn its ability off, and actually the default is not to have internet access, right? Its data ends in September of 2021, I think it is. And so that could be helpful sometimes to get kind of an unbiased answer to something where I take newer data and I have enough data to feed ChatGPT the information and have it give me answers that would be more of like natural language or what comes next or whatnot. And it's good at that without being biased to like current events right on the internet. Well, Bing AI and Bard both go out to the internet by default. I don't even know if you could turn it off, to be quite honest. And with both of them, though, they cite the sources and the articles and whatnot where that came from, which to me is really nice, right? Because then I could say, oh, where'd that come from, right? And I look at it, it's like, oh, that's pretty biased publication there, right? Whether it's biased in one direction or the other, right?
Biased things online, get out of here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what I've been told is if it's on the internet, it's true. So
that's right. I think Abraham Lincoln said that. I've seen.
Abe Lincoln. He was the one. He did that on his TikTok, right?
If nobody's ever seen that meme, yeah, it's like, God, don't believe everything you see on the internet. Abraham Lincoln.
Right, right. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, as far as the AI fears and concerns, Rico, do you have any other talking points on that?
Yeah, I think, again, exposure to things a lot of times gets rid of the fear, right? So using these things, AI is not going to go away. That's one thing that we can guarantee, it's not going away. Any advancement in technology typically does not go away. We've seen that progression even in our lifetimes, right? From black and white TV, colored TV, VHS to DVD, right? DVD, now moving on to streaming services. We see that constantly. We're not going to go backwards, folks. And that's what the listeners really want to take away from this. I understand that it's scary. We all know about Terminator, right? And the dystopian futures that all of these movies show us, right? iRobot was another one, okay?
Yeah.
Are those things possible? Sure, they're possible. We like to think that a lot of these technology companies are putting safety barriers in place. And again, they are, such as ChatGPT. If you don't have the paid version, it's not going to link to the internet. It's not going to access those outside executables, right? Whether it's a program or a browser or that type of thing, unless you tell it to do that. So these things are rapidly evolving, but I don't think we're at a point yet where we should be scared. Cautious, of course, as always, informed, but definitely use these tools, listen to what we have to say on it, and go and check it for yourself. And then you'll feel a little bit better. Because again, if an attorney who you would like to think had some years of experience prior to him, I don't think I saw that in the article, but had some years of experience prior to using ChatGPT. And either he didn't proofread it at all, or he just said, I'm going to full send it and see what happens. FAFO, I think, is the acronym that I'm not going to say what it stands for, but he found out anyway. That shows you that it's not at a level yet to where it's doing the thinking for you. It does not have that human touch, and as close as it can get, really depends on the inputs. And one of the other points I want to make on that is that anytime that things like this arise, new technology, there's plenty of opportunity here. We're already seeing, and we're going to do some episodes coming up on this, we've already discussed, on the opportunities, the business opportunities. There's a lot of entrepreneurial things that people can be doing, utilizing websites that already exist and have AI do most of that work for you. Again, it's only going to be as good as the user and the input that they give it. We talked about art. A lot of people worried about art. The reality about art is, if we ever discuss art, it's like movies and writing. We all know the best directors. You all know the best artists, right? Those are saturated markets. There's lots of people who are utilizing or who are creating that type of thing. Not everybody makes it big, right? So it may increase the volume, but as we know, when supply increases, right, demand goes down. Everybody knows that. And one of the other things I will mention on something you said earlier, as far as them developing AI tools, for those of us who work in finance, I tell you what I want to see. I would love to be able to take an audit for some of the businesses that we do business with. And of course, I won't do this for anybody who knows me and knows what I do. I'm not going to do this because it would be a direct violation of our privacy policies. But if they get an AI tool to a point where you can take an audit or financial statement, profit and loss, we can take that, enter that into it, and ask it to look for red flags. And those red flags would be whether or not they have enough liquidity, right? How their debt service coverage is. These are types of things in the finance world that we look for. If we can have AI start taking a look at that, and like you say, Mike, that's 10xing, 100xing employees, right? So It's an extension of the employee. It still takes a person to enter the information, a person to verify the information based on their knowledge and experience, and to really, go to the boss or go to whoever your supervisor is, and, go to your team and say, hey, look, we took a look at this. This is what AI told us. I verified these numbers. Here are some red flags we have in this company. This is why we shouldn't do business with them, or why we should get additional security in making these loans and that type of stuff. So it's another application that we're going to see probably come in the near future with it, but it's something I personally am excited about. So yeah, there are various forms of AI. I know I rambled on a little bit there, but there are some things that I'm really excited to see in the near future from it. I'll tell you that.
Awesome. Yeah. So a couple of things. I think that there already are software components that do some of that audit stuff. And I'm going to make a quick note. I think there are already some lawsuits on the bias in some of those,
I'm
interestingly
sure.
enough, right? So,
Yep.
my thought has always been you've got to look at the total picture in something, right? And there are negatives always, right, in anything, and there are concerns in things. But if you're looking at the total picture, you're figuring out whether do I want to use this thing or do I not want to use this thing. I think that it's inevitable, right? You should consider how you can use these tools, right?
Right.
I would highly suggest it. Also want to quickly mention there are certain cases where you don't need to use these tools, right? So I'm going to give you a case where I was talking to my dad, and my dad loves to paint, and he has probably thousands of works, honestly. He does it every day.
That's awesome.
He paints all the time. He's using paints. He's using a little cutting knife style. He uses all kinds of metallics, right? And it's really cool stuff, right? So I wanted to I was talking to him, it was just before Father's Day, actually. And we were on the line, and, I wanted to show him Mid-Journey. And I said, what if we took some of your paintings, right? And then used text prompts and, in Mid-Journey tried to make some things. I said, it's not going to be your original art, but let's just see what comes in there, right? Colors wise. And we had a grand old time. And after that, him and I talked, and he said, I really enjoy painting. And, as much as the AI stuff was fun, it's not therapeutic like my painting is to me, right? And I thought that was an extremely good point, right? Same with writers, like there are a lot of people who just really love to write. And yeah, ChatGPT or AI tool might be nice to get you past writer's block. Ultimately, though, you may just want to put those words on the page and suffer
Definitely.
through sometimes, because maybe what comes out the other end might actually be better. And I really love your point, Rico, where you're going to see a lot more content come out. You'll also not see, let's say, an increase in quality, right? Like it's just what it is, right? As an overall thing. And that's just something to be aware of. It doesn't need to, I've heard look what it did. Oh my goodness. And, I will say if you're not strongly figuring out how you can use these tools, you should be.
Yes. And that was one of the things I heard the other day on a podcast was, they said that, if you're afraid that it's going to take your job, if you don't learn it and you're not going, if you're not even going to, and we know this with everything in our jobs currently.
Yeah.
I've known people in the careers that I've been in that have been around a long time, right? And they say, well, we've always done it a certain way. And those are the words that pain me the most, as a younger employee in companies, not that I'm that young, but, younger by comparison to some. I've heard folks say that. And I'm always like, I understand where you're coming from. It is hard to learn stuff as we get older. There are things that I've said before. I never wanted to be that parent who their kids had to show them something. And Mike, you and I have discussed how many times, even with your kids, that they'll come to you and they'll show you something. You're like, wow, I didn't realize it did that.
For real, man.
That's just the way things go. So understand that if you're going to stay in the job market, you got to work with these things. As people had to go from typewriter into, word processing, right? Remember the word processing days where there's really no OS to it. It simply did word processing. Into Windows 3.1, the old Macs, that type of stuff. We've seen that improve. People were apprehensive to get into that stuff. They just didn't want to learn it. This is exactly the same type of concept. You're going to have to learn it. And I'm sorry, but if it makes your life, your job easier by 10xing, 100xing what you're doing, why wouldn't you want to do that? Why would you want to work harder? Take some time, listen to the podcast, do some research on your own. You're going to blow your own socks off. I guarantee it. So that's my takeaway is that you're going to have to go along with it. It's something that's going to need to be learned, whether it's on our phones, on our PCs, in our cars. It's going to be around. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. And, to your point there too, I want to encourage the listeners. We want your feedback. We want to be part of your journey as much as you're part of our journey, folks. So what I'd like to ask for people, we have a Facebook spun up, we have other socials. Facebook, we're doing a lot of polls, right? And we're trying to understand what people are looking for. Same with YouTube in the comments. Please like, please subscribe. But also, we really encourage you in the comments, right? To tell us what you think of the episode. Also, what you'd like to see more of in the future.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it would be great if folks learned along with us. Again, I'm not a technologist. I'm not an IT person. I'm not an expert in any of this stuff. So I am literally learning this in real time with many of the viewers, which I think, brings a great sentiment to the show itself. It's real. We're learning this in real time, right? So we're going to say foolish things. We're going to use improper terms in the interim, right? Until we get better with it. But if you want to see something from us, if you'd like to learn with us, please hit us up on our socials. Let us know what you'd like to see from us, and we will absolutely do episodes based upon that. And, speaking of users out there, we've already had some feedback from some folks that are out there. I know a couple of young people that were listening to our podcast that are enjoying it. One I even heard of that is actually listening to it while he works out of the gym, which are two of my favorite things, right? Making podcasts and being in the gym. Really super excited. And we have a lot of things upcoming, folks, with some other people in the IT industry. We're very excited to get them on the show to explore their products with them. So come back and join us again. We know you will.
Yeah, absolutely, Rico. Thanks for that. And it is exciting to start talking to folks and engage with them. And I talked to somebody who said that they were at work, and I forgot where they worked, but they were just it was like a service job, right? And they said, I had you in my ear the whole night, right? And they said they really enjoyed it. So, and we're just getting fired up here, right? Like, I mean, we're really approaching this from, the standpoint of we want to take everyone through the whole journey, and we want you to come on the journey with us, and we're going to be on the journey with you, right? Collaboration, all directions. And very excited to go through this with y'all.
Thanks everybody for listening.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and we're looking forward to seeing you back in the lab soon.